Well, Daoud, here we are. 25 years being a minister here in Culemborg. Of course, for me, as for all Christians and for all congregations, Jesus Christ is the core, the heart of our faith, of being a community. And I must say, after 25 years, Jesus even became more important for me, as in the beginning. Touched by his integrity, authenticity, his inner freedom, his unconditional love, and so on. In his eyes, we see God himself looking at us. Now you come from the Holy Land. How special is it for you as a Christian, a Palestine Christian, that Jesus is a fellow countryman of you, who walked and preached and traveled in the same landscape, in the same land, in a culture to which you still can relate.
Henri vraagt Daoud, Jezus komt uit het land Palestina, waar Daoud nu woont. Jezus is het hart van het christelijk geloof, het hart van de gemeenschap hier. Wat betekent het voor Daoud dat hij in hetzelfde land leeft als waar Jezus heeft geleefd?
Well, first of all, I am very glad to be here. It is a gift for me to be with you today and to celebrate this special day with you all. It is very special for me as a person to come from the Holy Land. I started, of course, to appreciate my name when people started to ask me, what is your name and where are you coming from? I said, David from Bethlehem. And it's very nice to, when you read the Bible, you live the context of the Bible. This is really very special to read and experience what you read on the spot.
Allereerst dankt Daoud jullie allen hartelijk dat hij hier in jullie midden mag zijn. En het betekent voor hem veel om uit het heilige land te komen en ook de naam van David te dragen, die ook uit Bethlehem komt en in dezelfde omgeving en in hetzelfde landschap te leven.
I remember yesterday you said he is not a carpenter. So what is he? Vertaal maar even direct steeds heen en weer.
Ja. Gisteren sprak Daoud in Driebergen en toen zei hij, Jezus was geen timmerman.
Well, for me, Jesus was a farmer.
Why?
Jezus was een boer.
Because, the parables of Jesus and his teachings, actually he was talking about farms, he talks about vineyards, he talked about planting seeds, and he knew what he was talking about, how the seed needs the soil to grow, and all of that was important. He knew what he was talking about. That's why he was a farmer for me.
Daoud zegt, Jezus wist zo goed waar hij over sprak in de gelijkenissen als hij spreekt over landbouw en wijnbouw. Jezus moet wel een boer geweest zijn.
Daoud, I've been on your place last year in spring, and I myself experienced and saw how vulnerable your situation is with your family, surrounded from all sides by Jewish colonists and their settlements. And still at the gates of your farm there is a big stone with the motto, the device, we refuse to be enemies. We heard from Jesus in the Sermon on the Mountain, love your enemies. Do you mean the same or are there slightly different? So what do you mean by we refuse to be enemies?
Henri heeft dit voorjaar zelf gezien hoe extreem kwetsbaar de familie Nassar is op de heuveltop waar zij wonen, omringd door Israëlische nederzettingen. Bij de ingang van het terrein van Tent of Nations staat een steen met het motto, wij weigeren vijanden te zijn. Is dat hetzelfde wat Jezus bedoelt als hij zegt, heb je vijanden lief? Of is het iets anders?
Well, it's a very hard question.
Nice.
Because it's sometimes easy to read and difficult to practice. I know that, Jesus, he knew that it is sometimes not so easy for us humans even to love our own family and friends. How come we are able to love our enemies? But I think, from my perspective is that Jesus meant is a non-violent way of resisting the negatives with positives. For example, like if you act differently, you are able to confuse your enemy. And this is why we say we refuse to be enemies, because the general picture is two enemies are fighting each other. But when somebody says, I am refusing to be an enemy, you give the other a way, a new perspective to ask why. And this is important.
Daoud zegt, het is niet gemakkelijk wat Jezus ons als opdracht geeft. Want het is soms al ingewikkeld om je vrienden en je familie lief te hebben. Laat staan je vijanden. Maar, zegt hij, ik denk dat Jezus ermee bedoelde dat het erom gaat dat we niet in de rol stappen van vijand als de ander zegt dat ik een vijand ben, maar dat ik op een andere manier reageer, zodat het perspectief verandert.
So loving your enemy is organizing confusion in love.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now in the Bible, for instance in the Psalms, we read a lot of texts about God who is destroying his enemies by force, by violence. So is Jesus outdating these Psalms? And you with your stone, we refuse to be enemies? Is it new? Is it outdating the violence in the Bible?
In de psalmen lezen we veel over geweld dat gebruikt wordt naar vijanden. Betekent deze boodschap van het weigeren om een vijand te zijn nu dat de boodschap in de psalmen achterhaald is?
And the questions are becoming more difficult.
Yeah, I know. They are difficult for me too. So try.
Well, I think, of course, like you read a lot of stories in the Old Testament, and for the people at that time, they wanted a savior, somebody that is able to fight for them, to bring justice for them. In the New Testament, we see that the story is totally being changed or completed. I feel with Jesus, things are new. With Jesus, we are all a new creation. So I don't want to say it's totally different, but it is the completion of the Old Testament. So in Jesus Christ, we are a new creation, and not a specific people or persons are belonging to that creation. We are all a new creation.
Daoud zegt, het is geen makkelijke vraag. In het Oude Testament was de context anders. Mensen waren op zoek naar een verlosser. In het Nieuwe Testament is het niet zo dat het totaal veranderd is. Maar wat Jezus zegt is de vervulling van de boodschap van het Oude Testament. En wij zijn allen samen een nieuwe schepping.
Refusing to be enemies in a non-violent way, I ask myself, what are you doing with your anger, with your aggression? It plays a huge role in my pastoral context with community, congregation members. So your pastor or your shrink, what will he say? Are you suppressing all your anger, all your aggression? What are you doing with it? That is not healthy.
Henri zegt, op het moment dat je stelt dat je weigert om vijanden te zijn op een geweldloze manier, wat doe je dan met je boosheid en met je frustratie? Duw je dat dan zomaar weg?
Well, of course, like we are all humans, we are angry, we become sometimes like violent or like acting negatively. I think the idea is that how to convert the negative energy positively. And what we are doing there is, of course, like we are angry, we are frustrated because of the situation, But at the end, beside reading the scriptures, we are trying to put our beliefs into practice. And what we do is to invest the frustration and the negative we have in a positive way. It's like to channel the negative energy positively. And we do it in a positive project. So when we are down, deep down, we think about a positive project. So all the negative energy is invested positively.
Boosheid, negativiteit en frustratie, dat is iets wat bij het mens zijn hoort. En dat is ook volop aanwezig. Daoud zegt van we moeten dat ook niet wegstoppen, maar het is de kunst om die energie om te vormen, te transformeren tot iets positiefs, zodat we op een positieve manier ons kunnen inzetten voor onze omgeving.
Now I know on the hill of your farm, in the far distance when the weather is clear, you can see the Mediterranean Sea. So you can also see when something happens, the Gaza Strip. So when there were 2 Gaza wars, you saw the fire, the phosphor and the bombs coming down on your people. So in that situation, how could you channel, invest your sadness and your anger?
It was very hard at that time because we could see everything from there. And we were following the news and hear about the negatives and the difficulties, the sufferings and all of that. I said, let's dig a new cistern. So we started because we don't have huge equipments, we started digging a cistern with a small jackhammer machine. And this is our therapy. This was our therapy, is to put the anger and the frustration and transform it in a physical...
When I become angry, I should dig.
You should plant a tree.
Plant a tree, oh that's better.
Tijdens de aanvallen op Gaza de afgelopen jaren was dat zichtbaar vanaf de heuveltop waar Tent of Nations zich bevindt. Dus de familie Nassar zag de aanvallen op de Palestijnen die daar plaatsvonden. En Daoud zegt, op die momenten voelde ik heel veel frustratie. Maar het hielp mij dan, dat was heel therapeutisch, om gewoon fysiek aan het werk te gaan en een nieuw waterreservoir uit te hakken. Dus hij ging dan wel hakken, maar met een heel positief resultaat.
Still some questions about the subject of violence. It is difficult for us all. Church members ask me, when Jesus cleansed the temple court, he was very angry, that's obvious. Did he go too far?
Well, I think also Jesus was God, but also human. And he knew, he lived with people. He ate with people. He suffered also with people. So he celebrated with people. And he was also angry with stuff that was done in the name of God, using religion or misusing religion or places for other reasons. I think, Jesus acted as a human in that way, and we are also sometimes acting that way. But I think what is important here is that the outcome, when we try not to go long with that, is that to understand acting negatively or in a violent way won't achieve the goal, won't solve the problem. It will complicate the issue.
Henri vraagt, op het moment dat Jezus de tempel reinigde, gebruikte hij boosheid en geweld, ging hij toen niet een stap te ver? Waarop Daoud zegt, Jezus was ook voluit mens en boosheid hoort ook bij het mens zijn. Alleen, Daoud stelt er wel vragen bij, op het moment dat we geweld gebruiken, zullen we vaak niet bereiken wat we willen bereiken.
According to international law and law of war, people have the right to defend themselves with arms against the oppressor, against military targets. So officially the Palestinians have the right. but you don't follow that way. So in the name of Christ, being a Christian, in all circumstances, and especially this one, although you have officially the right, it is not a good way, violence?
Well, I can say here, violence is creating more violence, creating more hatred, will create more bitterness, and you cannot overcome evil with more evil. You cannot overcome darkness with more darkness. You cannot overcome hatred with more hatred. So we have to do it the other way: evil with good, hatred with love, and darkness with light. And this is the powerful message of Jesus, which is a non-violent way of resistance.
De vraag is, volgens het internationaal recht hebben de Palestijnen het recht om zich met geweld te verzetten tegen de militaire onderdrukking. Hoe komt het dat Daoud toch kiest voor een andere weg? En Daoud zegt, het kwaad in de wereld kun je nooit overwinnen met slechtheid, met meer kwaad. Maar je zult haat altijd moeten overwinnen met liefde.
My last question about violence. I have the opportunity now to ask you. It is so difficult. Last year, the famous writer Amos Oz gave an interview, and he spoke with sympathy about Jesus. But he also said, well, on the subject of violence, Jesus to me is a little bit naive, too soft, because my people, my family was liberated by soldiers and arms from the camps of the Germans. So, is Jesus a little bit naive?
De Israëlische schrijver Amos Oz, die is van mening dat Jezus erg naïef was met zijn stelling dat je kwaad met goedheid moet bestrijden. Want, zei hij, als dat tijdens het nazi-tijdperk was gebeurd, dan waren mijn familieleden, dan waren de Joden die overleefd hebben, nooit bevrijd vanuit de kampen. Geweld was toen noodzakelijk. En Jezus is dus heel naïef met deze stelling.
Well, I think, Jesus went the other way, the non-violent way, because even like when Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount, turn the other cheek, he was talking about a non-violent way of resistance. Because according to that context, like Roman soldiers, occupiers, were not allowed to hit a person with the backside of their hands. So like turning the other cheek is that like forcing your oppressor to act in a way that he is not allowed to do it. Mm-hmm. And this is a non-violent way of resistance. That means you are in charge and not your oppressor.
Aha.
Daoud zegt, juist de stelling dat je je andere wang moet toekeren, was in de context van die tijd een daad van verzet, omdat de Romeinse soldaten volgens hun wetgeving geen toestemming hadden om met de achterkant van hun hand iemand te slaan, maar ze moesten dat met de voorkant van hun hand doen. Dus op het moment dat jij je gezicht draaide, was hij verplicht om zijn eigen wetten te overtreden of om jou maar niet te slaan. Dus het was geen zoetsappige, gemakkelijke manier van meegaan.
Daoud, another subject. I know you live in a Muslim context. You have many contacts with Muslim citizens, also in the village of Nahaleen and other places. Do you sometimes have conversations about Jesus, and do you come to a common understanding of him?
Well, religion in our context is a very hot theme. The idea is like if we are asked, and especially when people, like Muslims or Jews or other people, read the sentence, we refuse to be enemies, and then they question why you are acting that way. So we talk about our beliefs, because this is a Christian way of nonviolent resistance. It's not about converting the other, it's about opening a new way of understanding. Act with love.
Daoud spreekt regelmatig met zowel Joden als moslims over zijn uitgangspunt weigeren vijanden te zijn. En dat dit geïnspireerd wordt vanuit zijn christelijk geloof. En hij vindt hierin regelmatig aansluiting bij de mensen met wie hij deze gesprekken voert.
I come already to my last questions. I have many more, but as I said, you and your family live in a very difficult situation with threats from all sides. And 2 years ago, the bulldozers already came and destroyed trees at your place. And tomorrow or next month or next year, they can come again. How, as a family, do you stay strong in your faith, in your spirituality? Can you tell us something about the spirituality of your family?
I'm very happy to be born in a Palestinian Christian family. It's like growing up that way is giving us strength. In terms of practices, it's good always to focus and to look forward. Like a farmer who is putting his hand on the plow, he is not allowed to look backwards. And for us, it's important to say, besides reading in the Bible and praying, it's also important how to practice that on the ground. And for us, sometimes it's a challenge. It's like sometimes we are deep down, and especially after the destruction of the trees, but we always say the suffering and the cross is not the end of the story. So we have to go through it and continue. And one important thing is we have always to keep our principles in front of our eyes, which is we refuse to be victims and we refuse to hate.
Henri vraagt aan Daoud van hoe krijg jij en je familie het voor elkaar om in een context van voortdurende druk en dreiging toch maar voortdurend voor te gaan. En Daoud zegt, ik ben heel dankbaar dat ik ben opgegroeid in een Palestijns-christelijke familie, waarin ik heb geleerd om niet terug te kijken, maar om voortdurend, net als een boer die aan het ploegen is, vooruit te kijken en te blijven focussen vanuit onze principes, want daar wil ik aan vast blijven houden. Wij weigeren om slachtoffer te zijn en wij weigeren om toe te geven aan haat.
Okay, Daoud, thank you so much, but you are not ready, because after the sermon, and it was a sermon on the mountain, we always sing here our creed, the Apostolic Creed or another one. And in this service as a creed, we sing the Palestinian song I sang with you last spring. Our church choir already learned it, but of course we want to hear the authentic Arabic from you. We have a guitar for you. Meta will put the sheet before you. I will change a little bit the microphone. You can take the guitar and I will instruct the congregation about how to sing it. So. Okay. Deze keer mogen jullie klappen voor de preek.